Economy of Nigeria is a middle-income driven one with expanding manufacturing, financial services, communications technology, and entertainment sectors. It is ranked as the 31st largest economy in the world in terms of nominal gross domestic product and the largest in Africa. President Bola Tinubu on May 29, 2023 inherited a lot of issues, state of insecurity, weak infrastructure, high rate of unemployment, increased business mortality, among others. But these have accumulated into loss of confidence in investors and reasons for inability to attract foreign direct investments for the past few years. On the day of inauguration, the president removed fuel subsidy and other economic policies rolled in afterwards. Well, on our show today, we will examine the impact of these policies on businesses. And with me to do that is no other person than the Director General of the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association, Mr. Adewale Oyenrinde. Thank you so much. It's good to have you start the week with us. He's also a seasoned human resources practitioner who read up and practice human capital management. Thank you so much. It's good to see you, DG.
Thank you. Good afternoon. And thanks for having us.
Yes, DG, let's start with your last engagement. You talked so much about improving exports. I want us to start on that note because I see that that is really the way to go. Why is NECA talking about this at this time? Because many are saying we need to improve our balance of trade to be able to at least do well in the entire global market. Why are you talking about exports so seriously at this time?
Well, if you, within the context of your peculiarities, as we said earlier, policies are not designed for as an end on their own. They're a means to achieving an end. And for us, whatever the global economy is saying, whatever the global issues that we face, you also have to look at your peculiarities to deal with the current issues that you have. And we feel strongly that with the global shocks, consistent shocks within the context of oil and gas, which oil, especially crude oil, which remain our mainstay within the context of Forex, and because we don't control how much of crude oil that we sell, OPEC does that. We don't control how much that we sell. OPEC also does that. Now, and we need Forex. And what better way for you to deal with that shortage within the context of Forex than to look back at your natural endowment. Every state in this country has one or two natural resources. And before the oil boom, you recollect that we are living on exports, on cocoa, on rubber, and all those cash crops that sustained this country. And you can see some of the, what I would call monuments that we have, the cocoa house, many other infrastructures that we had during those periods. And our view is that with our peculiarities and the need for financial resources, revenue, that exports, non-oil exports will be a veritable way for us to generate massive revenue that will reduce pressure on government and that will reduce pressure even on organized businesses. So it's more of an enlightened self-interest for us. But progressively, what we have seen in the last 2-3 administrations is when government is short of revenue, rather than becoming innovative, very innovative in the context of revenue generation, the first thing most we look at is how to increase tax. And that's why we have the proliferation of taxes, over 60 different taxes, levies, and fees paid by businesses across board. And we feel if we reduce the pressure on government revenue through effective, definitive, and progressive export of non-oil goods, we can make do with sufficient Forex to meet not only our need as a nation, but also to meet other obligations that we have. So for us, we think is the direction to go. And if you permit me, we are holding the employer summit is holding later this month, and the team basically is also trade and non-oil export, changing the narratives for national development. So we feel that is the direction that the country should be going, because it's a much more sustainable and definitive way for us to turn the narratives of our country economically.
A beautiful way to start, and I'm going to follow up with some of these policies. And one very notable one that I know that manufacturers will want to talk about is the efforts made by government to unify the exchange rate. Even the World Bank and the IMF has commended the president for making or taking this step. But how would you react to this? Like, let's say, what are the immediate shocks? What are the immediate effects this is having before we now get to that period where we start to get the benefits of a demand and supply-driven market?
Well, it will also interest you to note that predominantly, majority of manufacturers before now were actually buying Forex at the black market, because yes, at the official rate, it's 4,450 naira then, but the bureaucracy, the bottlenecks in getting the amount of Forex that you need to keep the wheel of production going, the bureaucracy and the bottleneck is tight. So for you to keep your business running, you have to source Forex from other sources, which gives you the option of either sourcing through the black market. So predominantly, a lot of our manufacturers, a lot of our business members have been sourcing Forex from the black market. Now, what this has done for us, the unification of the exchange rates, is this: the arbitrage, the rent seeking, the corruption that pervaded that process, to a large extent, is now stopped. Now, create a level playing field for genuine manufacturers, because before now, the playing field was not leveled, because real users of Forex, they were competing at a disadvantaged position with those that just want to take Forex for rent-seeking purposes. So the ground is leveled progressively now. And we are hoping that in the days ahead, when government addresses the issue of Forex availability, then the exchange rate will naturally start coming down, everything being equal. And then we'll have the real value determined by the forces of demand and supply. So for us, it's a good development that the government has unified and made effort to continuously unify that exchange rate. And we believe also strongly that it's the first step in the many steps that the government will need to take to stabilize the monetary policy and also the fiscal policy.
Economy, and many say that the rightful thing for government to do is to increase minimum wage at the moment. Some are saying look at the range of 50,000, 70,000. I see you smiling already there. But what do you think about this? First is, well, maybe capacity. Many will say money gotten from subsidy removal should also be diverted to that route. But what do you think about salary increment at this time, side by side, stabilizing the economy?
You know, there are two different concepts, and if you permit me just to shed light on those.
Go ahead.
Minimum wage setting is a different entity entirely from salary increases. Now, globally, and I'll say globally, I'll emphasize it globally, there is a minimum wage setting machinery that is created, that is signed up by many nations through the ILO Convention. So there's an ILO Convention that stipulates how minimum wage is set globally. And Nigeria, we signed up to this. The last minimum wage that was set about 4 years ago, it was through that machinery that we arrived at the figure that was arrived at. When it was 18,000 many years ago, it was that same machinery that we arrived at. So our position is this: the same process, so that we don't become a pariah nation and start creating problems of ourselves where those problems does not exist. is the same process that has been said by the ILO. Nigeria is a member of the ILO. Nigeria currently also is the chairman of the ILO governing board in Geneva. Unfortunately, NECA is also a member of the governing board, and NRC is also a member of the governing board. So the rightful thing should be done within the context of setting a national minimum wage. It is not set on the pages of newspaper. It is not set by conjectures. There's a process that we need to follow, and all social partners are aware of that process. Now, coming to salary increases. At the private sector, traditionally, salary increases occur every year. After appraisal, they come up and increase salary based on performance, based on productivity. That is enshrined in the private sector. Also in the private sector, through the instrumentality of collective bargaining, we progressively increase and negotiate and renegotiate and increase where necessary the minimum wage per sector. So the minimum wage at the national level is not necessarily the same minimum wage at the private sector, because at the industrial level, hardly will you find an industrial group paying 30,000 as the negotiated minimum wage. So for us to mitigate the challenges of the current realities of fuel subsidy increase removal, we believe government should do something to ameliorate the challenges that we have currently, that all employees are facing within the context of the reduction in their disposable income, which can be addressed one way or the other by issue of salary increases. That is being done by many organizations, and many private sector businesses already coming up with innovative ways to address the welfare of employees. And I believe strongly that salary increase is part of those things that our employers, our members are already considering. Salary increase is just one component of the many other innovative ways that you can use to address the issue of palliatives or support for employees. The risk is this for us. If you deal with the issue of salary increase, or you address the issue of minimum wage, and you refuse to address the issue of business sustainability, then whatever increases you must have given the employees, inflation, high cost of goods and services, will knock off those increases. So our recommendation, or one of the recommendations we have made, is that while we are looking at the issue of salary increases, while we are looking at the issue of minimum wage, we should concurrently take a very deep look at how do we make the business environment much more conducive for businesses, so that we reduce business mortality, and also we reduce the tendency for many businesses to leave the shores of this country, take away the jobs that have been created in this country because the environment or the operating environment is not conducive for them. Salary increases, good idea. Minimum wage, fundamentally what we should do, but we should not deal with those two issues out of the context of enterprise sustainability.
DG, before I let you go, I know that there are a lot of challenges at the moment. We all face. We even had electricity tariffs was to go up, but thank God that for now, I think it's on hold, but we don't know if we have to follow the multi-year tariff order and all of that. Maybe that will still happen sometime as we move on during the year. But I know as an association, you talk about projections, considering all of these challenges. What is your outlook? What does it really look like? Because it's, well, should we say it's not business as usual. So what do you think, looking at, let's project now, end of the year, moving to 2024, what sort of figures do you see us getting? Inflation figures, we expect GDP figures. With all of these increases across the board, what are you looking at?
Well, we want to align the bit with the reality as projected by the World Bank, because they said, as we have said many times also, if you find yourself in a hole, the first thing you do is you stop digging. Now, that you stop digging doesn't mean you will start coming out of the hole immediately. It means that you have stopped your self-destructive tendencies. And then, with a clear mind, you now decide to come up with strategies that will start taking you out of the hole. For now, we have been sunk into the hole of fuel subsidy. Before now, we've been sunk into the hole of multiplicity of taxes. Before now, we've been sunk into the hole of insecurity, sunk into the hole of unemployment, sunk into the hole of debt, very huge national debt. So what we think the government has done now is to try and block all those loopholes, all the leakages that we currently have. Thank God the government has come out to debunk the issue of salary increases for political office holders. We believe that is not right. We believe at this point, when Nigerians are asked to be making sacrifices, the leadership of the country should take the leadership also in making those sacrifices. That is when it will be reasonable, it will make good sense to an average Nigerian to make sacrifice when he sees the leaders also making sacrifices. So things might still be a bit toughy. Things might still be a bit tight until we come to a point where all those policies that have been put in place, they will start yielding their fruit. So I want to think strongly that we are at the reverse mode now, reversing those grounds that we have lost, trying to come back to equilibrium, trying to come back to a zero level before we now start in a trajectory of growth that we think we should be going. Before the end of the year, things might still be a bit hazy, things might still be a bit tight, but with good consultation, with transparency and adequate consultation with relevant stakeholders, including the organized private sector, I think much more can still be achieved. Lastly, from me, if you permit me, we also advise government, we need to start building national consensus against all these policies that we are coming up with. Tough policies that the government is coming up with, very strong political will that they've demonstrated, but before you make success of those policies, we need to step up within the context of building national consensus. You cannot, in the course of saving someone, kill the person also. So let's not kill those that we are trying to save. The policies must be implemented definitively, but with a lot of human face. Nigerians are suffering currently, businesses are suffering currently, and they need to hear more from government. What exactly is the plan? If we are going to suffer for more time, as the president has said, that we'll make more sacrifices, for how long are we going to make those sacrifices? What exactly are the roadmaps? Nigerians will need that, and organized businesses also will need that.
Interesting stuff. It's always great to start the week with you, Sadewale Oyerinde. He is the Director General of the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association, NECA. Thank you so much for your time, and do have a productive day at work.
Thank you for having us.
All right, there.